Hey YouTube, this is Scarecrow Kaiser. I am going to do a deck profile. It's been a long time since I did an update on Grandblue. Obviously because they haven't gotten any support, but I still play the deck, still work on it, and try to perfect it because you can never actually have a deck completely perfected. But this will be an update on that for those of you interested. Trigger lineup: 12 crit, 4 heal. I'm not always a fan of running 12 crits when you can, but for this deck, for Grandblue, at least in my kind of build and probably a lot of other builds, there can be a lot of draw power that goes on, and I don't like drawing into draw triggers, obviously, and there are just times that, well, the way this deck runs with how aggressive it can be, or these 12 crits can just be, with all the aggressiveness of the deck, be too much for the opponent and just double crit them to death. Starting Vanguard, Skeleton Assault Troops Captain. Him over Night Kid. I think it's a lot of preference, actually, which one you want to play. And for this build, the way it's designed and my preference, I prefer to run the Skeleton Shock Troops Captain. Blech. Say that two times fast and can't say it. So, a couple of reasons. I'll go through it. There's actually a lot to say about the choice. Him versus Night Kid. Night Kid's bigger. Night Kid can move to the rear guard and never actually use his effect and still be useful because he can let your cards hit pretty easy good columns, like him and your grade 2 10Ks and grade 3s can hit at least 15 and team him up with an 11K or higher and he's hitting at least 16. However, Night Kid's effect, although it can be useful, it can set up other plays. At the end of the day, it's still a -1. You can balance it out with cards like Costas to make it even, but I'm not that big a fan of Night Kid. I prefer to run the Shock Troops Captain, and there's a lot of benefits to running him and why I prefer to play him. For one, when I draw my opening hands with this deck, I almost never keep in my first draw my grade 3. I usually mulligan it. Reason why, I know that might sound crazy. Well, it's because of him. If I have as many grade 3s in the deck as possible, and I know when to activate his effect, and it makes it a lot more likely, obviously, that I'm going to hit the grade 3, and thus I make this card actually worth it. It was not a minus. It made me more consistent and gets the job done. This card helps make you less likely to misride, which is why I prefer it, because I don't like having to rely on luck that much, although you can argue this is relying on luck. But if you do it right, you're not really relying on luck. There's a lot to be said about this card versus Night Kid. This is my preference, and it fits into this build rather nicely. Alright, grade 1s for Romero. Do I really need to explain? 8K booster. Standard 4 perfect guards. Then we have 4 Deadly Nightmare. I like this card in this build especially. Grade 1 7K, retire card to Soul Blast 2, call this guy from grave. Very good card. With the way the deck runs, I feel he's your optimal turn 1 ride, so that later on you can Soul Blast him to activate a card effect, and then by Soul Blasting him from the soul, you got to Soul Blast, and the cost you paid was something you wanted to engrave anyway, so if you're going to ride something, might as well be something you're going to Soul Blast later and then be able to call from grave. Very good card, I like him. And then we have, so the last of the grade ones, 2 Dancing Cutlass. Not a very powerful card in terms of power, but very useful effect. However, because he's a Soul Blast 2, you don't want too many, especially since the deck has multiple Soul Blasters. But it's a very good card. You put it down there, get your +1 off of it. Soul Blasting cards like Deadly Nightmare, and then you could, if you have enough soul left, if he's not powerful enough, retire him for the Deadly Nightmare you Soul Blasted. Grade 2s. For Blue Blood, obvious 10k Beat Stick. For Pietro, my personal favorite Grandblue card. I just love his artwork and name and flavor text. Very good card, very helpful in this deck. This card hitting even one time a game opens you up to like counter blasting like that one more time with Cocytus and stuff. Very good card, like him. He scares your opponent into blocking him, and whenever you can make your opponent not want to block, that's a good thing. Last of the grade 2s, 3 Deadly Spirit. Pretty much same card as Deadly Nightmare. Again, really good turn 2 ride, so you can Soul Blast it later. And you can do things with Deadly Nightmare and Deadly Spirit, like have a grade 3 in hand, and then play it to the rear guard, Soul Blast 2, retire it, call this guy to the field from the drop zone. The trade you're doing in that case is you're turning a grade 3 who's just an attacker and swapping it out for another card that's an attacker but can intercept. Or if you need a booster, you're converting your grade 3 into a booster. Grade 3s for Cocytus, obvious main Vanguard of the deck. Then we have 2 Basskirks. People would probably, well definitely for the most part, ask why the Basskirks isn't Cocytus enough. I say for this build and the way I run this, no, I really like the Basskirks. With the way I run the Skeleton Shock Troops, as I explained, I mulligan my grade 3s usually to make sure the skeleton's going to go off. Since the skeleton is how I'm going to get my grade 3 for my ride on turn 3, having 6 possible Vanguards in terms of grade 3s that I can play is very nice. Riding him first and then later on riding Cocytus is not that bad. He'll build up your soul so that you can use it to activate your other cards. And on times where you're not going to have that 2 damage when you get to turn 3 to ride Cocytus and call something from grave, riding him, you're not going to be that sad that you couldn't do it because you can just wait till later. And again, as I said, he's going to build up your soul. And every now and then, it's not that uncommon that I actually get to Mega Blast with him. Permitted, I usually have to heal since I'm going to use the Skeleton Captain, but it does happen. It's not that hard to Mega Blast with him with all the cards that can soul charge. Well, not all the cards, but mostly the draw trigger and then him himself, as well as the starting Vanguard. Then last of the grade 3s, we have 2 Nightstorm, just your basic 12k attacking. Team them up with an 8k hit 20. That about covers it for this. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. This is my current build of it. It's a very fun deck to play. However, I do love these guys, but I think these guys need more support somewhere on the near horizon. Tell me what you think.